Okay, this is the inside of my 1971 Airstream XL 500. As you can see, I'm trying to keep everything as much original as I possibly can. So everything's pretty much original in here except for the air conditioner. Couldn't get that to go start working, so I had to replace that. And put new air conditioning in. But one thing I really would like to replace is this faucet right here. This is, I think, been replaced one time, but it was replaced with one similar to the one that was already in it. It's very low. You can't get big pots under there to rinse them, and when you do get them under there, water just splashes everywhere. So I'd like to replace it with one that's a little bit higher than this. I was looking online the other day and I found this one on Amazon. It had a good price on it, plus it was 15% off. So I decided to get it. It cost me about $40. And there it is right there. So first thing is to take that old faucet out, and I'm going to go ahead and take the sink out because there's a few modifications, or at least one modification that I would like to make to this, to make this backsplash here, this back area, not the backsplash, but this back area right here, I want to make it a little bit sturdier because this one right here, you have to drill a big hole into that area there to get that to fit, and it's going to weaken this area back here, so I'd like to reinforce that a little bit. So I'm going to take this stuff out now, and I'll explain to you what I did after I get it out. Alright, got the sink out and I've got the faucet out. This is what was on the faucet. So you got this connector right here that is connected to some compression fittings. That compression fitting goes on the end right here. So you loosen up that compression fitting, take that loose, then you take this loose right here, and then this is what holds the faucet in place. So you go ahead and take that off last. You can just pull the faucet out. Sink was held on with 10 of these clamps right here, and they just go on to a bracket that's on the sink itself. Just like that. And it'll hold the sink down when you tighten it up. So what I discovered was you got 3/4 plywood with your laminate on top, and then this plate, which is going to have to go right here, is the total between here and here is 1.25 inches. And on this faucet from here to here is 2 inches. So I was hoping to reinforce that back area because especially if this gets wet back here, it's going to flex some. So I was hoping to reinforce it with some more plywood underneath. But it looks like I probably won't have room to do that. So next thing to do is to drill the hole for the new faucet, and I'll be back. Alright, as with most things that you think you're getting a good deal on, there's something you gotta modify yourself to get it to work. As you can see, this top part of this plate that the faucet is going to rest on, it's going to be tightened down onto, is curved. and the gasket holding it, the gasket that's going to seal it, is not curved. So on the ends, the gasket is sticking out quite a bit, and in the middle there's a gap in there where the gasket is not going to seal. As you can see right there, it's sticking out on the end there. So of course, going to have to modify this somehow. So I'm going to mark this end right here and see if I can cut it down somehow. And I'll probably end up having to put some butyl tape on here to get it to seal. It was a good deal, but of course there's things you got to work on when you get a good deal. I'll be back. So what I need to do is I need to cut a I think it's a 33 to 35 millimeter hole to accept the new faucet. 1.25 inches is like 33 millimeters, so that's what I'm going to use. But what I did is I measured in between the two centers of these holes, which is 4 inches because these are 8 inches on center. Made a mark, and then from the edge of this countertop to the center of this hole is 2.25. Same on this side, so I measured back 2.25 and made a mark. But because Airstreams have curved walls, and this faucet is higher than the other faucet, I wanted to move this forward a little bit so that the faucet itself wouldn't hit the screen back here. So I'm just going to move it forward by about a 1/2 inch. So I measured about a 1/2 inch and made a mark. And so that's where I'm going to drill for the new faucet. Okay, I'm going to use 1.25 inch hole saw to make that hole. Alright, I cut the hole, and I just wanted to put the faucet in there to test fit it, make sure it was going to fit in there okay. It fit just fine. Now I'm going to take some plumber's putty to seal the base plate. Put that on the bottom. I was able to cut this gasket down. This gasket that was sticking up right here, I was able to cut it down with my belt sander. But unfortunately, I don't know why they don't test this at the factory when they make it, but it's below the lip of this base plate, so it's not going to seal. So I'm going to have to put some plumber's putty in there also. Base plate is in. I put some plumber's putty underneath the base plate to seal it. As you can see, I put the nut underneath here, and you can see where the plumber's putty started squeezing out as I tightened it up. So all you can do is go along there and scrape that excess out. It should seal it really good. Next, and this is much easier to work on with the sink out. And it really wasn't that much trouble to take that sink out either. So next, got to connect up the water lines with the hoses to the faucet. You're going to have to use some connectors for that. So I'll use a what's called a 3/8 inch compression union, and that'll seal this copper tubing with the compression fitting, and just with the end of the fitting it'll seal that rubber. It'll seal with that rubber inside this connection here. The other hose in here is for the pull down sprayer, and it just connects up right in there, and then you can use that for your pull down sprayer. So I'm just waiting on the fittings. I just ordered them through the mail today. I went down to Lowe's. They were $7 a piece. I can get 3 of them for $10 on Amazon. So I'm just waiting for those to come. They should be here in a couple days. And then I'll get those connections made while the sink is still out. And then the last thing to do is get the sink in. And just wanted to show you these fittings right here. That's for the bottom of the sink. That's the drain pipe for the bottom of the sink. So when I took that out, I just undid that connection there and this one here, and took out all those clamps that were holding the sink down and pulled the sink out. It had some butyl tape around the rim of the sink that was sealing it. I think I'm going to go ahead and use plumber's putty to reseal the sink. Also, this 71 Airstream came with a faucet for drinking water. There was actually a water filter that was connected to this line down here. I had it connected for a while and I never used it, so I took it out. I still have that connection though. Let me see if I can show you down here. See where I don't think you can see it. Right there. I spliced those two lines together, took the filter out, but I might put that back in. I kind of like having a water filter. I have a Berkey inside, and I really like that thing, but I don't know if I want to carry a Berkey with me. I'd have to secure it down somehow. But I've already got a built-in one, so why not use it? Alright, I'll see you when I get those fittings in. Okay, I got my new fittings in. This is what they look like. And this is what they look like all apart. And normally I would just use this part right here, because there's already a ferrule on the copper tubing, and I would just slip this down on there and use that old ferrule. But there is a lip in the middle there that doesn't allow me to get this down all the way to that ferrule. The old fitting didn't have a ferrule on it, so it went, didn't have a lip on it, so it went all the way down to that ferrule. And these ferrules are compressed onto that tubing, so they're hard to get off. So I'm just going to take my tubing cutter. Got a little tubing cutter. I'm going to take that and cut it off just below this ferrule right here, down in this area. Alright, I got that tubing cut off. Now I can slip on the new nut from the new union and the new ferrule. That'll slip right on there. I'm just going to clean this tubing up a little bit right here before I do that. And because this new faucet comes with these hoses, it doesn't matter if that copper tubing is a little bit shorter. We still got plenty of room with these new hoses. And on the new hoses, this is how the compression fitting fits into that hose. You just take the nut and that ferrule off and screw it into the hose. The rubber washer inside that hose fitting seals it up. And then that'll just go onto that tubing like that, and you tighten everything up. Like I said, I just want to get that copper tubing cleaned up a little bit before I put everything together. I just noticed something. I'm glad I got this sink out, because these drain fittings right here, I've always had a problem with this side over here leaking down here. And I think I just found out why. There's no slip joint along this pipe right here. So there's no way to adjust that kind of motion in this pipe here. So this, and it's hard to see in the video, this part right here should be horizontal to this shelving in here, and it's not. It's turned that way a little bit. And so it's always putting pressure on this joint and this joint down here, and I think that's what's causing it to leak. Now this one over here, of course you can change it. It's got the slip joint in it, so you can change that to any angle you want with that. So that's no problem. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to go get a rubber coupler for this 1.5" drain pipe, and I'm probably just going to make a cut back in here, and I'm going to put that coupler in there, and that way I can do some change some angles this way with it, so it'll fit up to this part will fit up to the drain on the bottom of the sink much better, and it won't put pressure on this joint down here, make it leak, or this joint up here. The drain pipe in the back that I'm going to cut is pretty close to the wall, and it'd be hard to get any kind of saw in there to cut it. So I'm going to take my oscillating tool and I'm going to cut it with that. Now when you take this part of the drain pipe out, don't forget, like I did, that there's going to be water in here, and in my case there was RV antifreeze in there because it's so cold here. So when I lifted it up, it went like this, and it all drained out inside the trailer there, so I had to spend some time cleaning it up. So when you get done cutting it, this is what you got right here. The oscillating tool is going to melt the plastic a little bit, so all you do is you take a knife and you just scrape that stuff off of there. Okay, just go around the outside and the inside, because even the inside it'll catch debris in there and stuff, and it'll start building up. So go ahead and scrape it good on the outside, the inside, and the other piece of the pipe too. Alright, there's the coupler on the pipe. Coupler is about 3.5 inches long, so I've measured back from the end of the pipe where I cut it about 1.75 inches. Slid this on about 1.75 inches because we want to keep it even on both of the cut pipes. Now I'm just going to install it. There it is, installed on the other pipe. Now this will give me some leeway to change the angle so it'll connect to the drain on the bottom of the sink a little bit better. And I'm just going to leave it loose for right now till I get everything installed. Okay, time to connect the hose to the copper tubing. So you want to put your nut on first, compression ferrule on next, and then you put the fitting on. Now this side, when you tighten this up, you're going to have to snug it up pretty good, because that ferrule is going to compress around that copper tubing and into this fitting right here to seal it. On this side with the hose, all you need is the hose, because inside there's a rubber gasket inside there. You just snug that up pretty good on this side here. If it leaks, you just snug it up a little bit more. Alright, gonna get those installed. Got the fittings on, the hose connected. Now, because these copper lines are going to be attached to flexible lines now, it's going to have to be secured somehow, or else it'll just be flopping around back here. So I just secured it to an aluminum bar on the shelving, and where it's going to be hitting that aluminum bar, I cut a piece of rubber hose and put a slit down it, slipped it over the copper tubing, secured it with zip ties, and then I drilled a hole right here, put a zip tie through there and around the copper tubing to secure it. It's pretty secure now, because you know, when you're going down the road, this stuff back here is going to be bouncing all over the place, and you don't want to wear a hole into any of these lines because they're moving around, rubbing up against something. The same thing over here on this one, right down in there. I secured that one to another copper tubing that is connected to that wall back there, so it's pretty tight too. So don't forget to connect your weight to the hose that goes to your pull down sprayer. That way it'll pull your sprayer back up into place. Okay. Alright, now time to put the sink back in, get everything snugged back up. Alright, I'm getting ready to put the sink back in, but before I do, if you look right here on this edge, that's exposed wood right there. And if any water gets underneath the sink and gets into that wood, it's going to loosen it up, it's going to make it soft, and it's going to warp there. So before I put the sink back in, I'm just going to take some polyurethane with a disposable glue brush and just brush some on there, a couple coats on there, just to help protect that a little bit from any water getting in there. Time to put the sink back in. So I'm going to take some plumber's putty, and what you do with that, you just take yourself a good little gob out of the container, and you just put it in between your hands and just roll it till it's nice and even all the way up and down. And then I'm going to place it in here once I get a nice uniform roll of it, and I'll put it in there all the way around. I've got a good sized roll of the plumber's putty all along the rim of the sink, and so now it's time to put that sink back in. That plumber's putty is pretty sticky, so it should stick to that rim as I turn it right side up. Okay, and as I push down on this, that plumber's putty will squeeze out the excess well. And Now I'm just going to go around underneath the sink and put these in, these clamps. This part goes on the underside of the counter, and this goes in that bracket on the sink. As I tighten this up, this will push down on the sink and hold it in place and push the rest of that plumber's putty out. Now that I got the sink tightened up, you can see the excess plumber's putty right here squeezing out alongside of the rim of the sink. So what I do is I just take a little screwdriver, one that's not real sharp, or it's not sharp at all, at the edge, at the end there, because you don't want to scratch your formica. But I just take it and I just scrape the excess off, just like that. And you got a nice clean edge. It should be waterproof now. Okay, now it's time to connect all the drain pipes up. Looks like the angle for this connection here is much better. So I'll snug that up. And then this one. And then I'll tighten this one up. And then there's two more down here that I'll tighten up, and the last one is going to be that rubber coupler over here that I'll tighten it up. And there you have it, an upgraded kitchen faucet for my vintage Airstream. I really like it.